Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. What show am I talking about? I'm talking about the Crash Out League TV. Welcome back, everybody. It's your host, A Dub, and you know I'm here with no other than my partner in crime.
Manny in the building, man. Manny in the cut. Super happy to be here today. We got a great show for you. We got a lot going on today. Crash Out League, man. Great episode that we had, on our number one. We're here at number two. We're going to keep pumping out content all throughout the season. But today, it's a little bit different. We're not so much talking players. We're focusing on coaches today. We're focusing on coaching. Because if you can't steer the ship correctly, you're not going anywhere in the season.
Not at all. Not at all. And just to go ahead and dive into it and start it off right, what do we mean by we talk about coaching? Today, we're going to explain to you guys the different styles of coaching that you can have in fantasy. Now, you people like, you can't tell a coach how to be a coach. We talking about fantasy now. And I'm pretty sure that we have enough hours. Trust me, we have enough hours to be able to talk about this. So just to name a few, you can be the type of coach that plays it safe,
Yep.
get all the well-known players that you could be drafting.
Yep.
You could be the type of coach that takes the risk. You go ahead and pick up somebody early who was recently injured, but you bet it on them to have a big season for
Right.
you later on.
Right.
Or you could just be a simple coach who just lets auto pick goes by like the dumbest way possible, for my personal opinion. You know what I mean? But it's all different type of coaching styles, and we each gonna give you what do we think is the best way to go about coaching here in the Crash Out League.
Yeah.
Manny, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go back all the way to the draft before you even have your team filled out. So, as a coaching style, you can either go, do I want to go running back heavy? Do I want to go receiver heavy in my first couple of rounds? Because obviously, right now, the consensus from what a lot of people are talking about, the number one player is a toss up. It's between what looks like to be CeeDee Lamb or a running back in CMC. Now, both players can certainly get you your 30 a week. Now, it just depends on how you want to go. There's so little room for error at that number one spot. It's deceptively hard because that essentially you are betting this is going to be the best player in fantasy football. And you have to be right. So there's different coaching styles you can take depending on how you want to go in your draft. Do you want to go ahead and go running back heavy because you're like, you know what? The way I'm seeing it, there's not a bunch of backs that are going to get me the points that I need. Or do you say, you know what? I'm in a PPR league anyways. I need receptions. I might not go with a running back who gets a lot of touches out of the backfield. I'm just going to go with a straight receiver that's their job anyways. And so you ended up going receiver high. But like you talked about, it depends on whether you want to take that risk or not. Some coaches want to take the conservative route, maybe be a little hands off a little bit and just get a well-rounded team rather than you swinging for the fences from day one. Because to be honest with you, no, your championship's not going to be won in week one. That's going to be won way down the line. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to still have a team that's going to go and compete for the chip later on.
Right. Yeah. I totally get that right there, and I agree with them. That's just a form of ways that you could go about it. Another way you could go about it is what I like to think about is a lot of other teams that went ahead and drafted in this format is the tic-tac-toe format. And by that, I mean that you go and get you three players who's well developed to get you 15 to 20 points each week, and then you build around them. You could be that type of coach that you depend on these three players or these four players, and you just hope that the rest of the players show up that week and at least give you double digits, which could be as low as 10 points. So you can also go that route as well. Another form of a coaching style that you could do here is you could be the waiver wire king,
Right.
just like we had in our previous season with the previous coach last year. He was able to develop his team and getting into a winning record to be able to go to the playoffs and deep into the playoffs because he was able to pick up the right players at the right time in the waiver wire to help him build the team that he needed to get to the playoffs. He didn't draft the team correctly how he wanted to, but he was able to go into the waiver wire and build a team exactly how he needed to get to the place that he needed to go.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's different ways you could go about it.
right.
It's different ways that you could study the game. Don't think about going watch a YouTube video and say, I gotta do it exactly this way. Because it's gonna come draft day. Anything can happen on draft day. And if you don't draft exactly how the guy on YouTube told you to do it, you're not gonna enjoy your fantasy league. You just gotta
It
know how to
exactly.
pivot. You know
Exactly.
what I
You know,
mean?
and like
You don't gotta
like
always stay on one accord when it comes to coaching styles.
right. And to bring up exactly what you just said, the most important thing is you got to be prepared because your draft is not at all going to go the way that you thought it was going to go. There will be bumps in the roads. There's going to be somebody that you're like, dude, this guy's going to fall right into my hands. And sure enough, the pick before you swoops him. And now you're scrambling. She's like, man, I don't know what to do. So the biggest thing that you have to be as a coach is prepared. Prepared for having a second player and a third player in that spot to take. Now, at the same time, another thing that I think about as a coach is you start thinking about, okay, what's a big volume of players that I can start picking out that I might not get that main top guy, but I can still get, the third or the fourth best or the fifth best. You start thinking about what other positions don't have a lot of really good volume that you might want to take earlier, and to me, that's tight end. We've seen there's been a consensus 3, 4 really good tight ends, and then there's just a drop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just a drop in production. And so it's one of those things where you think about, you know what, man? Shoot, if I have a high pick and I already got a really good receiver, second pick's coming up, do I go and shoot for the stars and take a tight end that I know is going to give me 15 to 20 every week? Or do I kind of hang back and just kind of sit with that middle group? Because that tight end could be the difference between you winning that week and you losing just because they don't get as many touches as the other one did. So, I mean, you got to think about that too. Is just what's the quality of players in each position? And to me, tight end, there's a good 3, 4, and then there's a drastic drop in production and quality.
It's all gonna come down to how you want to go about being a coach in whatever fantasy league that you're in. But here in the crash out league specifically, you have to be able to adapt as a coach. You have to be able to pivot. You can't get stuck in your ways, or you will fall into a stumble and you will go from 4-0 to 4-8, just that
Right,
fast.
right,
So you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to adjust. You know what I mean? So when it comes down to it, keep a cool head because every day is different. But make sure that when you are going about it every day, when you're going to sleep, just know that you did your best and you did everything that you wanted to do. You was the coach that you wanted to be at the
right.
end of the day. Because if you don't go about it in that manner, it's not going to be an easy night for you. It's just not going to be an
And
easy night for you. It's not going to
and
be an
and,
easy
and look,
fantasy life for you.
in the crash out league, coaches talk. You know what I mean? Coaches talk. And so you got to be able to keep
Mm-hmm.
that cool, level head when trade discussions start coming through because people are going to start coming and people are going to start asking for it. And you're going to have to say, hey, you know what, man, I don't want it. Or somebody will go try to swindle you with a good little deal and you think it's great and it's not going to be it. But at the same time, you have to understand there's got to be some aggressiveness from you to be able to really survive and to really thrive in this league. We know one coach, Coach Jay Gibb, who ended up trading up to end up get Patrick Mahomes in the second round. And so that was a big shock to us all at the time when we first had that because, we didn't know, is that going to pan out? Is that not? Obviously, we know Patrick Mahomes is a great player, but is that going to pan out fantasy wise? And so currently, where we're sitting at right now, you got to understand, to be a coach here in this league, you do have to have some aggressiveness to you. You are gonna have to say, "Hey, listen, I gotta really go get it. I really gotta go get after it if I want to hoist the trophy next year."
You know, that's the best way that you go about it. You go from our point of view, or you could go about a point of view by a guy that's calling in right now. Let's go ahead and bring him in, somebody who was well versed in this situation and was able to come out on top last season. Let's go ahead and welcome in Coach Barlow,
Clap it
last
up,
year's
Coach Barlow.
2023 fantasy champion right here, guys. It gets no better than this right here. You know what I mean? This guy came in last season, the previous season before that, the 2022 season, didn't make the playoffs, turned his program around, and was able to come all the way through the 2023 season and become the Crash Out League fantasy season. Let's go ahead and welcome in Coach Barlow once again. Welcome to the show,
Coach
Coach. Welcome to the
Barlow,
show. How
welcome
you
to the
feeling?
show. Welcome to the show.
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. Appreciate y'all for having me today.
Nah, most definitely. When we was thinking of this show, it was like we had to bring in a previous coach just so they could get some guidance from you, get some inspiration, just to
Yeah.
know how was you able to go from an organization that did not make the playoffs to an organization that dominated the next season and was able to host a trophy at the end of it, winning it all. So first of all, we thank you for being here. Second of all, we're going ahead and start our question and ask you about your coaching style and everything. So that's a topic that we on. What are some things that you did last season to approach to turn your program around?
I think to turn my program around, I just became more of an active, manager. I think my first season in the Crash Out League, I kind of had drafted my team, and that's what I rocked with. I ain't make no trades. I really didn't hit the waiver wire or do anything like that. The team I drafted was the team I balled out with, quote unquote balled out with. As you said, I didn't make the playoffs, so they didn't do too hot. But I became more of an active manager. Uh, got into the game a little bit, learned how to play, and learned how to move some pieces around and improve my team.
Yeah,
Okay,
Coach,
okay. So,
I just want to ask real quick, Coach, you talk about being a more active manager. What are some examples of putting in that dedication to be a much more active manager?
Gotta gotta stay tuned in to what's going on. Anthony knows I used to have Red Zone up all the time, so I'm not only watching my team, I'm watching people who other players are balling out, people who aren't doing too good. Gotta keep a good running list of tabs on who's balling in the league and who could be next up and coming, who could I pick up in the waiver wire and stuff like that. So I gotta make sure like I'm just in tune with the league and what's going on and not just focused on only my team. So you gotta have a bigger view of things.
so a big thing that you had going on that we picked up on from you, Coach, is that like you were saying, you was more tuned in this season. You was in the waiver wire. You was making sure you was up, clocking in with your guys, clocking in with guys that didn't even belong with you. The dedication that you put in, but let's go ahead and get to the other side. Like we was talking previously before you got on the show, here in the Crash Out League, you got to be able to pivot. You can't stay in one coaching style at all times. You got to be able to adjust. And
hmm
it wasn't a pretty season for you the whole season. So when did you run into some challenges and what did you do to overcome them challenges to be able to continue to just push on and make the playoffs?
Challenge that I think that I faced was picking up Josh Jacobs. I thought he was gonna be, kind of a heavy hitter. I actually made a trade with Tarsus to get him after the draft. So Parsons had drafted him. I drafted Garrett Wilson, so we did a swap, and I got a pick on the back end of that. And so I thought, I made out like a bandit, had two RB1s. I thought I was good, but I had noticed I slacked off in the wide receiver room, and that was starting to hurt me a little bit. So that's when I started pivoting and seeing like what kind of moves can I make to, increase productivity in the wide receiver room. And so now that's what I had to pivot from thinking that CMC and Josh Jacobs would kind of carry me as true workhorses. I had to actually fill out that other side of my roster as well as tight end spot. I struggled with the tight end spot all season long until I finally picked up David Njoku. And once I picked up David Njoku, he really filled that hole that I had on my roster, and after that it was basically smooth sailing.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, we saw it. We saw the numbers do it.
yeah. Coach, and now we talk about the previous season. Let's flash forward. Let's look ahead. This season now. How are you preparing for a repeat? What are there any changes to the strategy? Are you keeping that close to your chest? And what pressure are you feeling to repeat, from other from other league members and things like that?
Uh, I don't. I mean, the pressure's always there in the crossout league. Like it's a competitive league. We got a good group of managers who are always trying to, be at the top. And of course, commish always takes care of the person at the top. So there's incentives, to do well and stuff like that. So I'm a little nervous. Competition's gonna be turned up a little bit this year. So it's gonna be tough, but I'm not too worried because I know what I bring to the table, and I know I can manage a team now.
Are you are you are
What
you
you
trying to
mean by
say
the
that the
commish
competition
thing?
wasn't hard last season? I really just want to ask one quick question. Are you saying that the competition really wasn't all that hard last season, but like because of a few people that ended up leaving the league, now it's suddenly harder, like out of nowhere? Like, is that what you were trying to say?
No, no, no. I'm saying the competition was difficult last year, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
still going to be difficult this year because that's the type of managers that we have in the league. I don't really appreciate the words that have been put into my mouth right there, but
Got it.
you know what I'm saying.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you brought up that the commission take care of who's on top, like with incentives and stuff like that, you want to elaborate on that and what you mean by that?
Oh, I got. Hold on. I
Coach
had.
Barlow stepping off real quick.
Yeah. I just got this package in the mail the other day. Actually, uh, Lombardi Trophy. You know what I'm saying? Fantasy football champion. So
Whoa.
that's the type of stuff that comes in the mail whenever you handle business and you win the league. So that's what I mean. Like he always looking out. He didn't even mention it. He didn't even mention it in the season or nothing. We thought we was just playing for the regular pot, and then all of a sudden I got this package at my door. Commish taking care of me. You know what I'm saying?
Hell of a commiss right there. The
Commish.
guy always
Commish.
take care of everybody in the league.
Real quick. Does that Lombardi changing hands, or does the new champion get a new one? Like, will just receive a second one for winning? Let's say he wins the league this year. Does he receive a second one, or does he keep that one?
Good
So
question.
from what I've been told, from what I know, each champion gets their own trophy, just as in real life
Got it.
competitions. There will
Got it.
be no moving around, no trading around. You will be able to put your trophy in your trophy case and look at it and be happy and excited about the achievements that you did in the Crash Out League. It's a real life physical thing that you can brag about to other organizations. I know that we also play for the pot, but everybody does what they do with that pot, whether that's just having fun with it, handling business on your bills with it. But at the end of the day, it's gonna go away at some point. So we also provide a trophy for the champion. So there's one thing that stays. So it reminds them every time they start a season in the Crash Out League, there's something to play for. Yeah. So, any last comments from you, Coach, about anything, about any advice you want to give out to any fantasy player out there to help them go about going into what everybody should be doing around this time, drafting for the next season?
I mean, I don't want to give out the secret sauce, but get out there and do your research and make sure you know what's going on before you get to the draft. That way you don't make a blunder and then your team's messed up for the whole season just because you made one mistake at the top of the draft. Another thing I want to say is don't be scared to send trades and move around your team and stuff. That's it's not. Sometimes you might mess up on a trade. Sometimes you might come out on top. But at the end of the day, that's the only way to get better. is to keep that team fluid and keep making changes. So don't be scared.
All righty, coach. Well, I'm sure the commissioner would wish you well if he was here right now. He'd wish you well and hope you have a great season. But I don't. I don't. So we're gonna have you get up out of
Yeah,
here
that's fine.
and go on with the rest of our show. But appreciate you for
Yeah,
stopping
all right.
by. It really means a lot. Um, you know, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. Hopefully, we'll have you on later on
Yep.
in the season.
Yeah, after I win it all. All right, catch y'all.
So,
Calling his
well,
shot
you guys
right
heard it here
here.
first. You guys heard it here first from the 2023 champion. He just announced that he's running it back
He's
to
gonna
go back to
repeat.
back.
Gonna
Something that has
repeat.
not happened here in the Crash Out League. Come on
Nope.
now. If that ain't bold, I don't know what is. And speaking of a bold saying from a veteran player, let's go ahead and give advice to all the newcomers. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of being a newcomer, the advantage of being a veteran player here in the Crash Out League or Fantasy League, period. Let's give them some advice to be able to survive here in the Crash Out League. Anything like that. You got anything like that,
Yeah,
Manny?
absolutely. So first off, this goes to the rookies. Being in any league, there's certainly a disadvantage when you're the new person coming in because a lot of the times, all the other league mates, they know how the other one talks, how the other one works. What's the best way to get a trade done, you know, and if you're just coming in, you don't really know that. You don't have that rapport and that trust already built with coaches to say, hey, listen, I want to be able to give trades that are going to be mutually beneficial to the both of us. And so as a young guy, you just got to be able to realize that sometimes the trade's not going to go your way, and if you don't feel comfortable with it, just back out and say, you know what, I feel like I'm losing in this situation. I'll just sit back. I'll hold on to my guy. If you want to make a deal later and you feel like I got a vital piece for your team, great. We can talk about that later. But right now, I just don't feel comfortable with it. And if you don't feel comfortable with it, trust that coach's gut. Because that coach's gut will guide you well. But being a young guy in a new league, certainly going to have some challenges with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Another thing that I feel like an advantage for veterans and a disadvantage for newcomers is a short term memory.
Yeah.
Everybody in the Crash Out League knows there's a lot of things that goes in that's not gonna go your way.
Right. Right.
Anything is up for
Yeah.
discussion here in this league. And I'm talking about from various of players getting injured on the first snap of the game to all the way to you losing out on the trade, just like Manny was saying,
Yep.
all the way to me dropping somebody into the waiver wire. Then 3 weeks later, they going crazy for the next 6 weeks, and now somebody else got them on their team and they winning because of it. You gotta have short term memory, because if you
Yeah.
don't, it's just gonna build up over and over and over, and you never gonna give time to get rid of it, and it's gonna affect your coaching style. We had a few coaches over the years here in this league that when stuff didn't go their way, they started to let their emotions get the better of them. They just start doing things like giving away their players. They start doing things by dropping them. They start doing things by not even plugging in the players that they should be when they got bye weeks, or matter of fact, when they got better matchups, things like that. You just stop coaching. You just start literally like anything like Kevin Hart said, God take the wheel. That's exactly what happens. And that's the last thing that you want here in a
Right.
Crash Out League. But the veteran players know that. They done built themselves up over the years to develop that type of skill. You newcomers that's coming in, it's going to hit you like a truck. You might have been in other fantasy leagues, or this might be your first ever fantasy league. But one thing I'm going to tell you, nothing is like the Crash Out League. I guarantee you that. So you need to have short-term memory in order to be successful in this league. When stuff go bad, okay, cool. wipe your hands off with it,
Yep.
move on. We on
Yep.
to the next. What can I do better to make my team better, to make me as a coach better, so I could be able to do something different next week to get this win and get another win and another win, all the way up to the point to maybe I win the championship.
Yeah.
Hey, we almost seen that happen last season
Right.
with rookie head coach, Coach Mike, over there with Team the Alchemists. You know what I mean? He got his team all the way to the championship, and he was a rookie coach. If it was no story at all to back our stories up right now, Coach Mike is one of those. He was able to have those short term memory losses and was able to pick up great players to help him get them all the way up.
Right.
So
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
an advantage and disadvantages that you can't have as a coach.
As a rookie, you got to have a week by week mindset. You can't,
Mm,
we're all going to have tough losses. Whether you lose on a 50-yard field
talk
goal
to him.
by a couple decimals of a point, whether you lose
Come
because
on.
somebody's defense goes crazy and puts up 40 and you were up by 30.
Come
I
on.
mean, you gotta forget about that. And you gotta say, look, next week is next week. I lost. Cool. What can I do to win this week? And start looking at your matchups and start figuring out, okay, look, this guy plays this team. This is going to be a better matchup for him. This guy plays that team. I got to sit him here. So being a veteran certainly helps you. But as a rookie, they don't know how you play. They don't know, what kind of strategy you're going for. Keep that close to your chest, because if you can, and they don't really know how you're coming, sure enough, man, draft day comes and you start taking some heavy hitters off the board, and they didn't realize maybe you had that, you know, then you're right in contention. But you got to keep it week by week. You can't get too hung up on a tough loss, because we're all gonna have.
That is for sure. Now, speaking on you newcomers coming in, nobody know your coaching style, keep it close to your chest. Nobody will know ever what you got going on until they get to play you.
Yep.
Now, it all starts before the season even starts, which is now in the preseason. You could be the type of coach who takes preseason seriously, because what
Right.
most people think, like, if you watching football in preseason for fantasy, you might need some help. That may be the case. It might. I'm not gonna say it's die, but I'm also not gonna blame somebody who's
Right.
eager to win in fantasy to be
Yep.
watching preseason, because you never
Yep.
know what type of players you're gonna see that could show you a little spark that you like. Okay, I might want to make that player a stash player because he has the potential to be a star this year, or
Yeah.
maybe I want to pick up this player late just in case because he is a starter, but he just don't got a name for himself. But I think this is the season for him.
Right.
But outside even that, preseason is big for injuries. It's easy for somebody to get hurt during the preseason.
Yeah.
And you won't know that unless you're tuned in. Not just watching Wise. I'm talking about sport networks. I'm talking about reading the news, everything like that that you could think of possibly to keep up with the preseason.
Yeah.
Because if you're not tuned in that way, you're gonna come in draft day and you're gonna end up seeing somebody that you wanted and you're gonna wonder why they got an O next to their name.
Right.
Oh
Right.
yeah, they got hurt during the preseason and you
Right.
missed it because you feel like if you watching football during preseason, you doing too much. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
You talked about injuries. We just had a big one hit the league today, which is that rookie
mm,
quarterback for the Vikings, JJ McCarthy, has a torn meniscus.
mm, big.
And that's huge. Not only because, now, don't get me wrong, not a lot of people were going to take McCarthy as a quarterback in their room, but a lot of people really want Justin Jefferson. So now you got to understand, injuries affect more than just the player itself. Now it starts affecting a lot of other people, because now that coaching staff says, okay, whoever we got as a backup, do we run the ball more because that's a safe play? Or do we still try to air it out like we would with Justin Jefferson? Because running the ball more is obviously going to take away from his plays and his touches, And then at the same time, if you do run the ball a lot, they're just going to say, cool, just put 2 people on Justin Jefferson, put 3 because he's that good, and just shut him down for the game because they're not going to throw the ball to anybody else. So it is easy to say, man, I'm doing too much. It's just preseason. But if you think about it, let's go all the way back to 2016. Dak Prescott gets drafted to the Dallas Cowboys, right? Tony Romo looks like the healthy starter, and he's ready to go. The final preseason game, they're up in Seattle. Boom. He hurts his back again, and now this 4th-round draft pick that nobody probably had on their boards, who lit it up against the Los Angeles Rams, is now winning Rookie of the Year, essentially coming out of nowhere. But you wouldn't have known that. You wouldn't have known that, oh, he has this arm talent. Oh, who is this kid? Because you were watching preseason football. So that gem, that game-changing gem could be playing right now and could be the whole difference between you winning and you coming up short.
Preseason is a hell of a time for you to make or break your season. It could affect your season totally, or it could not affect it at all, or it could mess you up for the whole season. It's the risk that you got to take. But from what you are hearing from us, the preseason could be very important for you coaches. If you out here can't figure out why you can't win in your league, why you can't make the right decisions, ask yourself, have you ever sat down and watched the preseason? Or have you ever tuned into the news during the preseason? Because they go bigger than just watching games. Have you ever seen reports? Just have you ever dedicated the time before the season to see what's going around in the league? Do something different to be better. That's what you got to do. And just to give you some examples so you can see the 3 different layers of how this can go, let's go ahead and break it down like this. You got Jordan Winterson. He just got drafted to the Rams. This past preseason opener, he went 6 for 9 in targets, which is huge. 6 for 9 targets in the PPR league. That's 6 points alone, plus his 74 yards that he gained throughout the whole game. Now that's a preseason game. Now let's hop into the next thing. CeeDee Lamb has been sitting out for contract issues. Somebody who is a lottery pick in every fantasy draft. He hasn't even been to practice yet because he wants his contract to be renewed so he can get a bigger contract, which he should. We all know he earned it. But Jerry Jones is just like, I'm not worried about it. So CD has not been in practice. For those who think that does not matter, it does. That really much does. So that's another thing in preseason, the type of stuff that you should be looking out for. Another thing is injuries. Jamar Gibbs, he just got a hamstring issue and he left practice early. And we all know how hamstrings injury goes throughout the season. It comes and goes. You could play a game, and then throughout the week, you can't play the next 5 games. And he is a solidified first-round pick in most drafts. Now you got to sit back and think, do I want to take this risk, even though he has a hamstring injury, and draft him in my first round when he's potentially a give-or-take type of player with this type of injury, since there's nobody out here who was able to figure out how to fully rehabilitate a hamstring injury and come back and be consistent with it. That's another preseason thing that you should be tuning in for. I just gave you 3 different. Somebody playing, somebody who decided to sit out because of contract, and injuries. And that's just 3 of many things that can happen in the preseason. So yes, the preseason is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you talk about Jordan Whittington, that's huge for him to be able to get rotations because he starts solidifying himself as maybe the 3rd option in this offense. And so unfortunately, we did see Cooper Kupp go down last season. Now, does that bump up Whittington to the second option behind Puka Nacua? Now, Whittington's getting a lot more touches and things like that. He could be a very good stash player later on down the road. CeeDee Lamb with the Dallas Cowboys is not at camp, as he reported. The biggest thing about that is the timing. You want to get your timing down with your quarterback as well as you can. You might say, yeah, we spent so much time with each other last year. Yes, but last year is last year. You're a year older. Things are gotta come
Mhm.
out with a different timing. So you got to be able to understand that. So CeeDee Lamb not playing now. Both parties are confident that a deal will get done, but until pen is to paper, you don't know. So that's a big thing too, because some receivers will take it as, you know what, I don't have a deal coming into the season. I don't have a deal when the season starts. Fine. I'm gonna do one of two things. Either I'm gonna ball out so hard that you are gonna throw this ridiculous amount of money to me, or somebody else is gonna take me, or I am really not gonna do all that much, and I'm gonna really try to make sure I don't get hurt this season, so that when the season ends, somebody else comes and picks me up because they know the kind of receiver that I am and they know what they're getting. And so that's the two-way street, And so yeah, and then Gibbs is a big one because a hamstring injury can really be so crucial and so debilitating throughout the entire season, especially for a running back. So, it big things coming out of the preseason. And then at the same time, we hear about this all the time. Coaches will say, hey, this guy's going to get so many more reps throughout the season. Or this guy, we're going to flow the offense through him. And that just gives you more reassurance when you go to draft that guy, that this guy's going to be a vital part of the offense. I mean, a couple names that come off my head, Sean McVay just said, look, our offense is going to run through Cooper Kupp. So you're like, great, dude. Cooper Kupp might be getting the same amount of targets and could be getting back to that wide receiver 1 through 5 position. And then you could say, you know what? We talked about him on our last show, Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is going to get a lot more touches, as his head coach mentioned. So that makes you feel so much better in drafting him because he can be a top 5 guy in his position. So either way, you got to really pay attention to this preseason stuff. You got to pay attention to a lot of these press conferences.
You know, we done spent a lot of time with you guys explaining to you how to survive in your fantasy league, specifically here in the Crash Out League. We have talked about you be able to pick your coaching style and be able to pivot to different coaching styles other than staying forced to be in one lane, be able to go to different lanes. We don't explain to you how the preseason is more important than most people think. You go
Yep.
win or lose by starting and preparing before the season even starts. We don't explain a lot of things to you by bringing in last year's champion. He done broke down what he did differently between the two seasons. As you heard from him, he literally went from just drafting his players and hoping for the best to actively getting into it and studying the game, which is what we've been telling y'all this whole time, what you got to do. You got
Yep.
to be able to read the reports, watch games, watch other people's games, not only pay attention to your players, pay attention to other people's players, because there's a lot of things that go into football. It's 11 men on the field on each side. You
Right.
got to be able to watch, keep your eyes on each position to figure out what's going to come about it, so you can have the best season that you can. Now, if you wasn't able to get anything from that, I advise you start the fucking video over, because I don't understand how you could get one thing
Run it back
from
a
what we
second
said
time.
today.
And then
Because
if you don't get
we,
it, run it back a third time. And then if that doesn't work, watch
yes,
the actual video because maybe you're a visual learner. And if that doesn't work, listen to the audio version only, and maybe that will go through because I promise you, this is a
Mhm.
wealth of knowledge.
Yes, sir, indeed. Yes, sir, indeed. And on that note, we appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode here on the Crash Out League TV. We appreciate y'all. We signing out. Thank you from your boy A Dub and from my man's Manny. And we gonna catch y'all on the next episode.